should be done to gain economic liberation?
Well, because I believe that we cannot truly say that we are really independent in Africa until we can take care of ourselves without having to beg for aid from the Western world, and without having all these, because when you are independent, then you don't have things like unemployment and simple things like the lack of healthcare and housing and all that kind of stuff. Because you're not taking care of yourself. So for us to really get to that stage of independence, we need to engage to finish the independence war that was started by our forefathers. And so that's why I say that the second war of independence is going to be a war for economic liberation and for prosperity creation. And that's what we need to embark on now as this new generation of Africans, is to create prosperity for ourselves.
What should African governments and entrepreneurs do for economic prosperity?
Well, I think that, government is obviously a necessary part of this equation. Governments need to create the infrastructure for entrepreneurs to be successful. They need to create the right policies and the laws and so forth. But that's all they should do. And then they should get out of the way to let the entrepreneurs thrive. And so where governments go wrong is that they want to get involved too much, and they want to run businesses themselves, and they are in the way of entrepreneurs. They make it harder for you to get a license, to register your business. They come in one obstacle after another. And so that's why they need to get out of the way of entrepreneurs, and then Africa will really prosper.
How do African entrepreneurs come out of their mindsets?
Well, I think, we as Africans need to stop blaming the rest of the world for our problems, and realize that, we are sitting on an amazing opportunity. It's an amazing time to be an African. We are where China was 30 years ago, and it's one of the few places in the world that's growing economically. So we need to see that opportunity and actually use it as a way to remove ourselves from dependency on the rest of the world. And entrepreneurship is the way to do it. So getting more Africans to think like entrepreneurs will get us there, because then we'll build our own businesses and we'll create wealth for ourselves, and we won't need to beg for aid.
What criteria do you look for when admitting students to African Leadership Academy?
We look for 4 things. One is we're looking for passion, because we find that people who change the world are very passionate about something, and they keep working on it until they achieve it. The second thing we're looking for is courage, because the act of leadership requires courage, because you're trying to change things that people don't want you to change very often, and you need to be able to go against the status quo. The third thing we're looking for is perseverance, because the job is a long run. It's going to take a long time, and you need to be able to stay with the course. So we're looking for people who don't give up easily. And then finally, we're looking for values, the ability to tell right from wrong, because that's where our leaders have gone wrong. And so those are the 4 attributes we're looking for.
What do students learn at ALA?
Our curriculum is structured around leadership, entrepreneurship, and African studies. In addition, they get the basic academic foundation, and they learn how to write well, English, physics, chemistry, biology, all the traditional academic subjects. But all of that is really comes together around this idea of the culminating project, where they have to launch a business or launch a venture in the community while they're at the academy. And so we invest in them to do those things, and we're giving them hands-on practice in terms of how to be a leader, how to be an entrepreneur. So that's what happens at the academy.
What kind of linkages does ALA look for?
Well, the missing linkages are in several places. One is in making sure that we have enough of partnerships across Africa that can feed us talent. And, because there are thousands of young people across Africa who could benefit from the academy. So how do we get all the organizations around Africa that are working with young people, with youth, to, refer candidates to us? Then there's also linkages in terms of mentorship for the young leaders we're developing, people who are more established leaders, mentoring these young leaders we're developing, people who can, universities that can take them once they leave us, and give them scholarships and so on, and then companies that can hire them and give them internships. So those are all the things that we're looking for to really make. And obviously people who will also fund scholarships, because 85% of the kids that come to the academy are from poor backgrounds. They're indigent students, and they need scholarships. So those are all the parts of the ecosystem that need to come together.
does ALA admit students from rich backgrounds?
This is not an institution for impoverished young people. It's an institution for the leaders of Africa. Whether they come from rich backgrounds or poor backgrounds, we don't care. So we are looking for people who are going to change Africa. And so if there's someone who comes from a wealthy background, Bill Gates came from a rich family and he changed the world. So if there's a young African, someone who comes from a wealthy family and they have great ideas and they're passionate, they want to change the world, we'll take them into the program. They'll pay fees because they can then subsidize the ones who are coming and they can't afford it. So the only reason, 85% of them come from disadvantaged backgrounds, but that doesn't mean we'll turn away someone who comes from a middle-class family or a lower middle-class family or whatever. We're just looking for the best leaders in Africa, period. We don't care where you come from. Male, female, black, white, Indian, North African, whatever. We are looking for the leaders who are going to change Africa.